All right. I am Tenochi from Classically Trained Gaming. I am here with FinalStryke.
Hello.
We're going to do our first episode of our Classically Trained podcast. So go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit.
What's there to tell? Okay, I guess we'll start with the basics. That I've known you for essentially forever.
20 years.
A little over. More or less. Yeah.
Over 20 years now.
Yeah, Jesus, man. I moved to Japan in 2014, where finished up school and started my career and all that good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
why don't you tell everybody who you are?
Yeah. So I'm Tenochi. I have not in Japan. I'm here in the good old US of A. But yeah, we've known each other for 20 years. We grew up gaming together and just hanging out at each other's weddings and everything. So it's been crazy to think it's been 20 years, but so yeah. So kind of explain a little bit about your growth with gaming and stuff, like because I started on the Nintendo. Eventually got the Super Nintendo, like I think the year it came out. Same thing with the PlayStation. It's easier for me to list the systems I didn't have rather than the systems I did have. And then the few systems I didn't have, you and our other friend had pretty much every single system known to man, just about. So, yeah.
Just about, yeah. It's for me. It was Sega during the great console wars of the 90s. And then moved to the PlayStation, and then picked up through one way or another pretty much everything. Obviously, like not when it comes out, because broke students hard to drop $300-400 on a new Xbox, but yeah, it's been what has been interesting me for forever, essentially.
Yeah, because both at one point we both wanted to be video game designers, and for both of us that fell through, but the love of it never ended.
Yeah, I tried a little harder. I applied to a couple companies around here.
Yeah,
to do that, but it didn't quite work out. But that's okay.
Yeah, ended up working better out, I think, for the both of us. That's a crazy industry to be in.
Yeah, I like not having to crunch. All told.
So yeah, so far, what has been your favorite system and favorite game?
I don't know, because each kind of the main consoles I've been playing have kind of been who I was as a gamer at those points. Like the PlayStation 2 is more focused on like RPGs, like slower, more story-driven games, and then it was more Xbox 360, more PlayStation 3 to a little extent was more like fast-paced, your shooters, Halo, Call of Duty. But favorite game, I'm still going to have to go with Final Fantasy 9, specifically from way back.
So close.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 7, come on.
7 was great. Obviously, I played that one first, but
yeah,
the story didn't pull me in like 9 did. And you got to admit though, music's better in 9 because it's less like MIDI, like stuff. It was fully orchestrated.
Yeah, it evolved even from the beginning of the PlayStation to the end of the PlayStation, because PlayStation was the first generation of consoles that had voice acting. So,
what games had voice acting?
Legend of Dragoon.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's been a while.
So it's just crazy how even from 7 to 9 it changed because seven, it did its best with what it had, and it had some of the most classic, iconic songs. But even 2 games later, it's already full actual audio tracks.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I actually can speak a little bit about that because I've read a recent like development tales was
Mhm.
because Uematsu-san, who had always just bang stuff out on his keyboard for 10 years at that point, and he kept doing his thing. And but when 9 came around, they actually started working on that before 8, and so they moved like everything over to Hawaii, like this kind of place in the middle, and just put so much into it for the whole time. Like they put the budget in, they put the time in to make it more, well, to give it the production value it has.
Yeah, I feel like 7 really took that first step because it's years ahead of its time, and that really turned a game that had has always had stories, but generally they were kind of like very dialogue driven. I think 7 really set the bar high of how to make it into, as you said, a production, and that's why I like it so much. Is it was just it had everything. It had the gameplay. It had the music. It had the story. It had the characters. There's really nothing that you can complain about it, And obviously, you have the preference of 9 because you like the story better. But and Final Fantasy, the series, really has taken that. They've never really dropped the ball with that. I think there's a couple of times that they dropped the ball. I think like 13 was kind of a little too much railroady, but they've done a good job of keeping the story going, and they realize that that's what people care about.
Oh, absolutely. I think the jump from 6 to 7 is significantly larger than 7 to 15. You
Oh
can
yeah,
you can see where they you can see the influence, like going from fantasy to science fiction, having your full the music, your kind of storylines. You're gonna have like your core crew. It's yeah, like I said, 7 was kind of the DNA, the first of what the series has become.
yep, yeah. That's why it's my favorite. Uh, a lot of people don't agree, which is shocking, but yeah, Metacritic didn't even have it in its top 100.
Oh, Metacritic's
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. My favorite systems. It's kind of a toss up. Yeah, I really like Xbox. I kind of flipped between Xbox and PlayStation for a long time, but I just like the Xbox. Its security features it has. Um, I was getting hacked all the time on Sony, and so I really like that. What Microsoft has done. It's secure. It has great hardware, and then
Now
yeah, now didn't always, but and then the Switch, man, the Switch is game changing.
it is that. Yeah, definitely. The Switch has been fantastic. I mean, what's there to? What more do you say? I think if you don't have one, you probably want one. I would imagine. Um, but yeah, I went through. I don't think I went through a couple Xbox 360s, but I had a lot of trouble with them. I got frustrated with that
Red Ring of Death.
a couple times. A couple times. I actually managed to fix it once or twice, and I'm just like, screw it. I'm just gonna get a PlayStation 3, and that worked great. But
Yo, yeah, I mean, as I said, I've had more systems than not. think I counted. There's I think 22 systems that I would qualify as major systems, and I think I've had 17 of them. So
I think since 2000, I've had a lot. But there's a couple from the 90s, especially like your obscure ones. You get like your Neo Geo, your Sega Saturn that was fairly obscure in the States. Actually, I did get a Saturn, like
yeah,
right
you had
before
the
I
Saturn.
moved. Right before I moved. But yeah, since then, yeah, I think I've got just about everything. I still have just about everything.
All right, so say you were a video game designer like we want it to be. What is your perfect game?
That's a tough question because it depends upon how you define perfect and your genre. But I'd say the first Portal that it came in, did exactly what it wanted to do, did it perfectly, and didn't overstay its welcome. Like even
It's
Portal
funny because
2,
that was a college graduation project.
yes, it was, and which also is a what man, what we're looking for here? A great good case for being really careful with the properties you intend to monetize later, because
Yep.
the school then own that. I mean, like, well, Portal 2 even it was more like, okay, here's a little extra story, here's multiplayer, and that's it. Like, 'cause, yeah, the first one didn't have multiplayer, but I'd still consider it perfect for what it was.
Yeah, I think that's something. I think it's important to, draw people in with the characters. I feel like character for me is super important. Even if it doesn't have a super strong story, a perfect example would be Breath of the Wild. Doesn't have the strongest story, but the characters and the world building is really good. You really feel like you're a part of Hyrule, and you really get to feel what Link is like. But yeah, I think characters and then the story, gameplay will generally build itself in. If you have a good character, a good story, the gameplay is gonna will enhance that. Not as long as it enhances it, as long as it doesn't detract, then it's fine. It doesn't need to be a perfect 10 out of 10 gameplay. So that's me personally.
That's fair. I think Breath of the Wild is a good example of, okay, here's some characters, like give the give you the time, the interaction to grow to like them. It's not like some games like, here's this person, you're supposed to care about them, and it's supposed to
Yeah.
drive the story. Like, come on. Okay, it's like Fallout 4. Oh yes, here is your wife or here is your husband. Now you have to go get your baby. I'm like, I just want to goof off with like my robot and dog.
Yeah.
Why? Why do I care?
Yeah, the forced relationships often are, but even Portal, it kind of like your example, the story was the puzzles. They even had little elements of like the cake and stuff, the writing on the walls. So I mean, you can have story without having story, but it has to be immersive. If you don't, like you said, if you don't care about your wife or husband, then what's the point of having it? If it's something where you know the person is, you have a good intro cutscene of, hey, this is your wife or this is your husband, and they were taken away, they're kidnapped or they were killed, and then that's a different story. But yeah, you got to care. You got to care about people, because you don't care about them, then they're just wasting time.
Yeah, like I said, it's forced relationships. It's just shoving it in your face, which is it's lazy story writing. It's laziness, and I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think of another good example of excellent storytelling. The problem is I haven't played a lot of story-driven games in a long time. So I'm having a hard time coming up with examples, but as little as I played it, Final Fantasy 15
Yeah.
was it's not in your face, but like you're hanging out with your friends on a road trip, and occasionally there's monsters. It's
Yeah.
I feel like it did a good job of here's some people to care about, but they're not in your face.
Well, even one example, the princess that you're supposed to be marrying, they do a very good job with. She's not there through the first several chapters of the game, but they talk about her. They have radio, like on the radio, telling stories about her. Little codexes telling about her history, and you care. Like by the time that you meet her, like you already feel like you kind of know her character, and that you really do kind of care about her, and you want them to be together before you even meet the character.
Well, that's good. You've clearly played more of it than me.
Yeah.
That's a different problem for a different thread of discussion. But yeah, I think probably after 13, like okay, we need to really re-examine our storytelling here.
Yeah, you can't hook a person and go, all right, here you go.
Yeah.
Just doesn't work. That's why exploration games are becoming the hot rage right now. Is you want to feel like you can go wherever you want to go, and the story will eventually get there. You still want the story. I'm playing Immortals Phoenix Rising right now. You have this huge map, huge open world. You'll eventually get to the story. The story will always be there, but you're having too much fun looking around. Like, look at how beautiful this is. Look how crazy this is. Like, let's get all the collectibles. That's why Elder Scrolls is so popular as well.
Yeah, definitely. And man, again, actually, the newest Pokemon game did a good job with open-ended exploration. Like, you can
Yes.
blow through it if you want, or you can take your time, have fun.
Let's actually talk about that, because that's actually a game that was amazing when we grew up, and we played ever since Red and Blue, and it's been the same game, and sometimes that's a great thing. It was a great thing for such a long time. How do you feel about the new game? Did it come up short of expectations going over to an actual console?
Okay, so actually, we don't have the same experience with Pokemon because I did play back in the. For me, it was yellow, but I guess I got bored. Of like, oh, this is too childish for me, and so
Mm-hmm.
I took a massive long break till recently, and I'm like, I don't want to play. I kind of funk, and Pokemon was perfect. And I think at its heart, it did really well because it's collecting, it's fun, but it's relaxing. It's
Yeah.
not quite. I mean, like Minecraft, you can really like space out and mine for like half a day, like or Civilization, but still like pop up and maybe play, fight a few rounds, fight a trainer, catch a Pokemon, and it does that really well. Uh, but maybe I didn't have the expectations. A lot of the die-hard fans who've been really sticking to the series for the last 25 years.
Yep. I feel like it's almost there. I feel like the next Pokemon is the make or break, because they did a lot of positive strides with like the downloadable content and everything, but I really think that the people who have been there for now 25 years, it'll be 25 years this year, right? Think so?
Yes, I believe so.
Yep.
I'll
So
check in a second.
yeah, so 25 years this year. I've played every single generation. Uh, I didn't play Generation 3 when it came out, but I played uh, the remakes of it. So I've been playing constantly. So for me, I feel like, why am I continuing to buy a new one when it's the same story? And you just have another 50 to 100 new Pokemon. I think it needs to be, it's pretty soon it needs to hit that next level, or else it will just become a children's game.
That's the thing is, like, it always tries to appeal to children, which it makes it a really difficult balance to strike. February 27th, 1996 in Japan.
So yeah,
So
here in about
this
a
year,
month.
Month and change. Cool. Like that's a really hard balance to hit. Find something that is acceptable and easy to kids, but something like adults are looking for with whatever that may be.
Yep.
Said it's a hard balance to hit.
Yep. I think the story could do it. If you can figure out a story that's more than just paper thin, something more than just child gets first Pokemon, goes and becomes master, and that's pretty much the story. And then here comes evil Team X to destroy your plans and capture all Pokemon. Needs to be a little bit of an evolution of that, and I think they do that. I think with the direction they're going, with the downloadable content, these huge open world, I think they're almost there.
I would think so, and I think the DLCs was where the first one was. Kind of shows they're weird about it, but they are listening. Because what stands out to me is something you had in Heart Gold, Soul Silver, like having the Pokemon follow you around, like, and which is fun. And they brought that back, like, oh yeah, that's something people like. And so I think they're figuring it out.
Do you think that they should branch off? Do you think that they should do something a little more complex, like maybe an MMO, and have that as like the adult version, and then they can have the main story kind of stick as the kid? Because I think that would be a good way to split it up.
It could be, but that's difficult, and you end up from a development side. That's difficult because you're going to be splitting up your team, and the MMO is just automatically going to get more attention because
it's going to be a whole new almost studio
crunch. Like you would need that, and that gets tough. It's I don't know. I think the closest parallel would be the last Call of Duty from last year, where you had 2019, where you had like your main COD and you also had Warzone, and they were sort of built off the same systems and they could share assets. That's probably the closest to how that would work well. I could think closest parallel.
Yeah. I don't know. Tough questions and tough things that people need to think about when it comes to. There's a lot of games, a lot of expectations, and it's easy in the industry to just kind of disappear. It's hard to have the success that Final Fantasy and Pokemon have had. It's hard to keep people interested that long.
It is, but it's also, I think we need to re-examine the hype machine, because came out last month, man. Cyberpunk 2077. It was a lot of hype train that just derailed, man.
God, that could be an entire episode, and I haven't even played the game.
Exactly, same here. So we got to be mindful of it, and figure out what our expectations are and manage them properly, I would say.
So speaking of Cyberpunk, what would be the quickest way for a game that you think you're going to love? What do you think the quickest way for you to... What's the one thing that if you actually had a game that you absolutely were looking forward to, just be unenjoyable?
Ooh, okay. Something makes an enjoyable game unenjoyable. It's... Honestly, the basic stuff you do all the time. If you think about your gameplay, like when the stuff you have to do all the time is boring or it just doesn't work well, that gets frustrating.
Kind of like Death Stranding. The whole game is walking.
The whole game is walking. Yeah, that better be good. Parts of it, actually, the first Assassin's Creed was awesome about that. It's you can kind of like jump up walls. I mean, in hindsight, it's a little janky, but for the time, you could explore what was the city? Damascus, medieval Damascus was really really cool. Uh, but just like when your most basic stuff is boring, when it doesn't work like it should, and it's frustrating, I'm out.
Yeah, I think mine's kind of a similar answer of when you can see when you want to do something, you can see what you want to do and you can't do it. That is the most frustrating and kind of similar thing is kind of just when like a good game Warframe, you just want to bounce around and jump around and stuff, and when you like that's a great thing, but when you have like a platform up there, you just can't figure out how to do it, and it's like this weird convoluted way that you have to do it. I think that's the most frustrating is when you can see something, when something like, can you imagine if the portals were glitchy,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, actually, Destiny 2 has that bad sometimes. Like, it's supposed to be a platforming part, and like, it looks like it can get there. Oh, can't. Oh, can't. Oh, I'm dead. I'm dead. And maybe you have to like change up some stuff. Like, you have to do it this way or have to have this thing. I'm like, dude, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just like stay dead for a second and grab a drink or something. Because that's frustrating.
Yeah, because there are some games that are just like, there's some games where the trying and trying again is the fun part. Like Mass Effect is a good example. Like I played as the engineer, and I knew I was having the most difficult class to play as, and I was playing at the extra ultra difficulty, and there was very frustrating times, but there was the joy in that. If there's not joy, if you're just going up against the wall over and over again and it's not part of the game, that's kind of what I'm talking about is.
Yeah, actually, I had that exactly. Destiny 2 again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've played it, but the new shiny the Hawkmoon quest.
Okay, I haven't played the new portion of it.
New. Okay, that's cool. But the Hawkmoon from Destiny 1 returned. And there's this quest line that culminates in a big boss fight. It was so frustrating, and it's also the problem with like just not figuring out, and the problem with Destiny's like when it's like a big boss fight, like you get maybe 5 seconds and you hop straight back into it, and that stress and frustration, you don't have the time to cool off because starts again, and I had to like quit, take a break for a couple of hours, and then come back later in the day to like finish it off because it was just too frustrating, and I was getting so pissed off and hurt, like just like thrashing about. I'm like, screw this game.
Yeah, Overcooked. I don't know if you played that. That's a really fun game, but it's something I can't play for too long. So I'll play for 15, 30 minutes, and then it gets so frustrating sometimes. And that's kind of the only reason I haven't just been playing that game like crazy is there's times where it's just like, wait, you want me? The freaking kitchen starts shuffling around, and then you get stuck in a spot, and you're like, okay, well, I can't even do anything right now for the next 45 seconds because I just happen to get caught on the wrong side. And then, you do that 3 times, and then you put the controller down, and that's what stops the good game from being a great game.
Yeah, exactly. Silly, like if you get like bad RNG, and the games that relied on RNG, like bad difficulty spikes.
Yeah,
it gets.
When the game goes from relaxing, and you're like, oh, this is fun, and then you put 5 hours into it, and then all of a sudden you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, where was this stuff before? Like, man, that's always tough.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that's pretty good. So we'll yeah, we'll try to get this together again, try to do this more regularly and stuff. So um we'll I'm Tenochi, this is Final Strike, and this is Classically Trained Gaming.